Hello guys, in this video I will guide you through a small project I recently came up with, and this project is about real-time plotting of analog signals. Therefore we will use our Arduino and a joystick module to generate these signals, which we can then access in Python to plot them like this using the pyqtgraph library. You can find all necessary code for this project on my GitHub page. So just go there and download the repository, and then you just need to unzip it and you are good to go. Okay, let's first take a look at our Arduino setup. So I'm using here the Arduino Mega. But that really doesn't matter what kind of Arduino you're using. You can do this with whatever Arduino you have. These joystick modules, they usually have 5 pins. So we first connect the ground pin with ground and the 5-volt pin with the 5-volt pin of our Arduino. And the third pin is the VRX pin, which belongs to the joystick movement in X direction. And I decided to connect the VRX pin to analog pin A1. And for the VRY pin, which gives us information about the movement in the Y direction, I decided to use pin A0. And finally I plugged in the switch pin to digital pin 11, but we won't use the switch pin in this example. Okay, let us now take a quick look at the corresponding Arduino code. We first define here our variables for the pins, and as I said before, I plugged in the switch pin to digital pin 11, the pin for the Y-axis to analog pin A1, and for the X-axis to analog pin A0. In our void setup function, which only runs once, we first open up our serial port, and then we have to define our pin modes, and all of these 3 pins are inputs. And after that, in our void loop function, we now have to make analog reads of both the X and the Y axis pins, and we are just printing them on the serial port. And we put a little delay in here. It's just 5 milliseconds. So 5 milliseconds delay corresponds to a publishing frequency of 200 Hertz. So it's quite fast, but we will see later that it's still no problem to publish these values in real time. Okay, next we have to upload the code on our Arduino. And then we can check the serial monitor. And we see the output, and the analog output, as usual, they range between 0 to 1023, and these for both axes, so we can set both axes to this range of values. So there's one thing I noticed here, and it's about the y-axis. So if I go up with the y-axis, the values turn 0. And if I go down with the y-axis, values go up. And for the x-axis, it's like right refers to the high values and left refers to 0. So we have to be careful if we want to plot it later, similarly to what we see when we look at our joystick and our fingers. We have to be careful with the y-axis that we change the direction there. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we have to get in our Python script. So I will just open it and I will quickly run it so we can see the output. So this is the output, the plot. And let's take a look at the script. So let's see here in the main, we first create our object for the serial port. So here you have to be careful that what you type in here for your serial port, because this has to match. If you go back to our Arduino, we can see here which port we are. So I'm on COM3, so that's why here's COM3 as well. Okay, so next we have our plot. This is a joystick plot object, which is basically this class. And first in this class, in the initialization function, we do all the stuff we need for our interface. So this belongs to the canvas where we put our plot to. And we also have a second object here. This is for displaying the mean frame rate. I will check this later. And then we do some adjustments to the plot. So we set the range of our x and our y axis. And we activated the grid. And then we take here the axis objects so that we can have different settings. And for example, then we can set the label of the axis and we can define the ticks. And we want, these are the major ticks, so we want like bigger lines in the grid for the major ticks, which are at our ranges, high range and low range, so 0 and 1023. Okay, so next we have to initialize some other values here, which we will need in our update function. And here is where we actually call our update. And let's take a look at the update. Okay, so the first thing we do here is we read our serial port and we get the values we saw earlier in the Arduino as a string. So we have to split this string to separate x and y values. So here basically what we're going to do is we're going to change the direction of the y-axis, what we get from our input. So what we want to have is like if we go up with our joystick, we want to go up to the high value, and if we want to go down with the joystick, we will see the 0 value. And then as you could see already, we're not displaying only single points here, we are displaying a whole array of points, and it's actually this value here, so it's 20 points, an array consisting of 20 points the same time. So if nothing happens, it's always the same point. That's why you can't see it really. But if we move around with the joystick, we see that it's actually an array. But I found that it's much better to see, and you can see where you have previously been. So that's why I decided to do it like this. So here we call our frame rate function, which you can find here. And basically all what happens here is we calculate our frame rate and then we display it here. And as you can see, we are currently updating our plot with 200 frames per second. And this of course corresponds to our output from our Arduino, which publishes at 200 Hz frequency. And even if we would increase our publishing rate to, let's say, 600 Hz, we were still able to plot also with 600 frames per second using the Pyqtgraph library. So as you can see, this library is really good for really fast plots, and therefore I would definitely recommend, if you want to plot in real time, to use Pyqtgraph instead of matplotlib, because matplotlib, of course, you can make really nice looking graphics and plots, but it's not really a build to be able to plot in real time. Okay, so for the end of this video, let's take again a quick look at our outcome. And here we can see how we move the joystick with our finger and how we get our signals at the same time. And I want to thank everyone who watched this video, and if you want to see more projects like this, subscribe to my channel or just follow me on GitHub. I would really appreciate that, and hope to see you soon.